That's a huge mass of highly radioactive stuff. The reactor design itself, reactor plant is a closed loop, and I'm sure you know how a reactor works. Primary system, the water goes through the reactor where it's superheated. It next goes to a heat exchanger where that heat is taken into a non-contaminated system. Goes through a condenser.
I think I learned
back into the reactor plant.
That was my third grade lesson.
Okay, all that piping is in a building,
Yeah.
not in the ground. Okay, so Vermont now we're hearing of a leak. Little tritium is leaking out somewhere, but that has nothing to do with the nuclear plant. That has to do with the spent fuel that's being stored on site and the piping that's needed to support that. That is a huge ticking time bomb at every nuclear power plant. And if you look at what Europe is doing with nuclear power, they're doing fantastic. And here we are, depending on oil from the Middle East, burning it by the billions of barrels to get our energy, even though, you know, solar and wind is helping, and we're doing a good job with that, slow but sure. But the high technology is nuclear power. And the fact that this country is not using it, and the government has blundered the process drastically, really ticks me off, because I can see what nuclear power can do. All you have to do is look at our submarines. Submarines now can go 30 years without refueling. Mega tonnage, they can go all over the world for 30 years with power in that fuel in a reactor. That is high tech. That's what we should be using big time. And as far as transportation goes too, I have 2 cars, you know. I need a gas powered car maybe to take a long trip, but my running around like coming down here, I'm in Barrington, coming down here tonight, I could use an electric powered car. Nuclear power has the capability of producing cheap electricity, which we could use, because nowadays these electric cars will go 125 miles. So I don't need to burn gas half the time, and nobody else does either. But our energy program is off on the wrong foot, and I think there's ulterior motives involved. Obama just recently, he's always mentioned wind and solar, you know, to get us out of this pickle, but just recently he mentioned nuclear power. Right after he mentioned it, there's a big article in the paper about a leak in Seabrook in 1999. So they've already started, you know, picking away at nuclear power. I think it's a big mistake, major one. I'd like to have your comment on nuclear power.
Okay, well, does anyone object to this gentleman being one of my energy policy advisors? Because I will readily admit he knows a little bit more about the subject than I do. But to answer your question a little bit of a different way, I agree with the statement that we don't have a firm energy policy in this country. I think we're reactive as a country, and we're not proactive. And I think that you've heard probably several times people say, well, wind, solar, all forms of alternative energy. You hear that from each and every individual come election time. And the fact of the matter is we still don't have a sound energy policy that anybody elected can really agree on. So there's a few things that I would like to see happen. First of all, I do want to see a competitive marketplace try to dictate what your uses of energy are. But what that means is that we've got to let the innovators in our country do what they do best and produce these alternative forms. I must say that there are those who are looking for subsidies from the government to produce alternative methodologies to produce energy. And we're not in a position right now as a nation to give out those subsidies. But I don't disagree with what you were saying. France is a great example that has always been used as for energy in nuclear and the cost versus what we're paying. We do have to, as a country, come up with a far more sound and effective policy that's going to reduce the cost and consider what waste that we are using. But I haven't seen any current legislation on the subject matter, so I couldn't really comment on that. But I very much would love to have, you know, your input moving forward on what are the things that maybe you think I should be doing as a legislator to move that issue forward and to move the discussion forward. But I mean, you're far more of an expert than I am. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I know everything about the subject matter. So I would have to rely on people here in New Hampshire as to what are the alternatives that are real alternatives. I am aware of what France and Germany is doing. I think that you're right. There is an opportunity for this country to reduce its consumption and its cost, but we have not put those issues firmly on the table, and I will not be somebody that produces subsidies to one entity over another to try to get it going. I think that we as Americans should be driving that based on the competitive marketplace. And I think if that did happen, you probably would see some changes. But a national energy policy that I think encourages alternative uses makes sense. I got to tell you, what we're doing in Manchester is not legislated by the country or the federal government or the state government or even by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. We are seeking, we're doing energy efficiency programs in all of our buildings. We went through an RFP process. We're going through now an RFP process to bring alternative vendors in to take our garbage and not burn it but heat it and turn that into energy for city buildings, which is far more environmentally friendly than burning it. But we're doing that not because someone legislated it, but because it makes good sense from a cost savings perspective. And I think you probably will see more and more. UNH is actually starting to do it. Dartmouth is starting to look at it. I would rather see those initiatives come not through legislative, but through leadership. But I would love to talk to you more about it because it sounds like you're pretty up on the subject matter. So I would be more than happy to exchange contact information with you. Talk about what are the things that you think I should be doing as your representative to move the ball forward. I think that's part of my job. If I don't have the answer readily at my fingertips, I'm going to talk to people, try to figure out what we can do, and I'll do it for you. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I want to let you go because I know you've got other things that you'd like to do for the rest of the evening, but I had a great day in Rochester, I've got to tell you. It was exciting to meet a lot of people here in Rochester and talk about the issues that are going on in our nation. Thank you for coming very much, and we'll see you over the course of the next several months in this campaign, and I hope to earn your support this coming November. And I look forward to the opportunity to represent you and to serve you. Thank you all very much.